This is the very first video I've ever created about MGTOW in Brazil. You see, I've never really been much of a video producer, rather. I've always been more active in comment sections and have shown greater interest in American and European sites such as CS MGTOW, Alexander MGTOW, TFN and Human. I began engaging with the community back in 2015 during the time of Sandman. Honestly, I never imagined that there would be a MGTOW space developing here in Brazil, nor did I think there would be significant opportunities for growth considering the laws here are quite unfavorable. However, they're not as severe as the ones in the United States, North America and the continent of Europe. I've been following the MGTOW community since 2014, 2015, and as unbelievable as it may sound, it was only this year that I began searching for something on a national level. Up until today, I was aware there was one, but it seemed to be just a few scattered blog spots. However, one aspect that really caught my attention, and I believe it's something that deserves to be highlighted, is that even though the situation isn't as dire here in Brazil, especially when compared to Europe and North America, there's one crucial thing that always needs to be kept in mind, and that is the importance of maintaining anonymity. The significance of ghosting cannot be understated. I'm not entirely sure if it's due to the fact that perhaps in Brazil this practice began more recently, which means people might still be experiencing a sort of red pill rage, or if it's more about ego, the desire to engage in discussions and debates with either traditionalist or feminist individuals. However, it's crucial to realize that you're challenging the established norms of the system in which you reside. You're not in wartime, but in resistance. Unless you have a substantial amount of money, perhaps you're a millionaire, or you own your own business, that's perfectly fine. You don't need to worry about maintaining your anonymity. You can freely go out and make MGTOW content available using your image or face or name and discuss your personal life and everything openly. However, if you need to work for someone else to make a living, if you rely on your salary and depend on your job, then your anonymity is essentially your survival. You must defend it fiercely, tooth and nail, because you can see even the people who don't even need to be MGTOW, the people who are traditional, conservative or religious. These guys already suffer prejudice in the workplace and in their social lives on a daily basis, So imagine when you adopt a stance and take on a MGTOW philosophy, which is something even more radical, something that goes even further against the system. So, as I said, I've only been following some national content for a month or two. And I'm seeing that the business, it has only just started. I wasn't even aware that there was this type of space available for discussion. I believe it's far more intriguing than just translating videos made by other content creators. Moreover, the reality we experience here is distinct. This is a topic I plan to explore in more depth in future videos. But for now, let's not linger on this and instead focus on practical matters. I've observed individuals setting up YouTube accounts. They often choose to use their first name while clearly avoiding their last name for privacy reasons. Yet, they still go ahead and use their first name openly. In these accounts, they frequently discuss various aspects of their personal lives, sharing experiences and stories with their audience, talking about things that might lead the person to try and find out what the person's area of expertise is, roughly how old they are and everything else. So you have to remember ghosting. You have to look like a normal guy, like any other. There's no point in debating or arguing with others because you just be wasting your time. The person who follows MGTOW didn't get to MGTOW by chance. They saw something that brought them to this path. So you don't have to convert others or anything. So for the practical part, okay, if you're going to interact on YouTube, create a Google account on an empty email that you don't use for anything. Apart from this YouTube account, don't put any of your personal details in it, understand? Use it as a separate account. Clearly it lacks, and I don't quite understand why it's necessary to create a playlist unless it's for MIG content and similar things. It's simply about what you enjoy and what you don't, and there's really no reason to make it accessible. There's no reason to make it accessible who you follow or who you don't follow, and besides likes and dislikes, let's consider what else. I believe that's all for YouTube, and then you are able to use that very same account on Twitter. Why do I mention that? Well, here's the thing. Anyone who follows MGTOW is aware that sooner or later feminists would begin to attack you. This is because you're essentially going on strike, right? You're choosing to refuse to invest in and contribute to the system. However, an interesting development we've observed in recent years is that it is not only feminists who are counter-attacking or attacking MGTOW. If you take a look at the religious and traditionalist side, they're also launching attacks because they believe you're not fulfilling your responsibilities. And what's quite amusing is that lately it appears that the majority of these attacks are originating from traditionalists and conservatives, So initially these individuals will begin to dislike your channel and they'll start wanting to report and flag it, aiming for the channel to be banned, whether it's on YouTube or Twitter. Additionally, there's a more intense attack which occurs when they attempt to uncover details about your personal life and extract personal information. For those of you who have read the articles, I believe it has been approximately 2 or 3 years since some articles about MGTOW were translated and produced nationally. Everyone who read about it noticed that the guys handled it in such an absurd manner, It's essentially labeling the guy as an extremist, almost like a terrorist, and claiming that he despises women and everything, even though it has absolutely nothing to do with that. It's just that, like I said, MGTOW is ghosting, is survival, is playing your life your way, discovering a new purpose for it. You don't have to argue with these guys or interact with them, because anyone who follows other content like All Human, Stardust, Thinking Ape, and TFM knows that it's a problem that will be corrected automatically over time. Do you understand? We're not going to come along and convert them. As Thinking Ape mentioned some time back, the MGTOW label might eventually become unnecessary. Over time, the need for such a label may diminish or disappear altogether, because as laws in society, especially the relationship between men and women, become more and more geared towards benefiting women and harming men, many men will come to the same conclusion without ever having read about MGTOW. I'm also going to link here to an article that talks about this, which is a rather old article, but by another author who was more on the side of the MRMs or MRA men's rights movement, who is a British author, Peter Lloyd himself. The man who authored his book several years back, and as time has passed, as is often the case with many individuals, you notice that the laws are not improving. In fact, they seem to be deteriorating further. And I believe it was during the previous year that he actually appeared in a television interview where he openly stated that he has no intentions of getting married. He mentioned that he doesn't agree with the concept and doesn't find a marriage contract as it stands today to be fair. You understand? So naturally, it's inevitable that more and more guys will start to see things this way. No matter how much pressure is applied by either feminists or traditionalists, his perspective isn't going to change. So ultimately, your primary responsibility is to your own well-being, right? That's what truly matters, Once you're well enough, you can contribute to the others. And basically, nowadays, marriage and having children is something that goes totally against male well-being, totally against his survival. Because at any moment, everything can be taken away from him and becomes a slave who has to pay alimony. He can end up in jail or go to jail or become a homeless person. None of these are viable alternatives. I've digressed a bit because, of course, one thing always leads to another. Just to remind you, the importance of anonymity. You're not here to debate, you're not here to argue, You're not an activist in the men's rights movement or a feminist. You only have to interact with people from the same community to have a discussion that will contribute to both sides, And these two sides, both the traditionalists and the feminists, are antagonists. And they are not interested in having a discussion. What they really want is to convert you, to conquer you, if you will. Their aim is to compel you to follow the path. So your primary defense is maintaining anonymity. There is absolutely no need for you to engage with these individuals. In fact, I believe that if a significant national MGTOW content producer were to emerge, you can be quite certain that it will definitely happen, much like it did with the foreigners. A major media outlet will eventually want to conduct an interview with someone, even if they remain anonymous. However, you should not give them any room to maneuver because firstly, you will not gain anything from it. Secondly, even if the interview turns out to be subpar, and they twist everything to portray the community in a completely negative light, you will just be wasting your valuable time. And even when the interview and the articles are really good, it's still that thing we always end up discussing. The man who has never encountered a negative experience hasn't yet reached the understanding of the red pill or even the purple pill. And as a result, he will never agree with the MGTOW perspective. In his mind, he believes everything is fine. So that's the situation, and take care of yourself.